release to extinction that self-doubt, ultimately helping that individual to be prepared for what is to come. Because yeah, you can come to therapy, but when you leave, there's a war going on outside, and you must be well equipped emotionally to deal with what's going to come your way.
After leaving Asheville and driving to Atlanta, right as we got into town, we arrived at Kris's apartment for his interview.
My childhood there was pretty good. So it's interesting because I feel like when I was a young kid, like I didn't know what gender identity meant. I just knew me, or I was like a little different. Honestly, not till really late in life, because I was attracted to women for a long time, for as long as I can really remember. I had boyfriends and things like that, but generally, like, my most powerful attractions were to women. But at the same time, I was like, I don't feel like a lesbian. I don't feel like gay, like, encompasses all that I am. And so I think it wasn't until I was probably like 22, 23, when I actually met one of my really close friends who was going through his transition at that time. He was just in the beginning when we met, and then I was with him through until he got top surgery, and even when he started doing hormones, and then when he moved to Seattle to kind of start a fresh start. And so it was interesting because he was the first person that actually gave being trans life, gave it some kind of reality, made me realize that I didn't have to just, live in this kind of ambiguous world. I could actually be and look like and live the life that I felt like I wanted to live. I started working at Trader Joe's. There were other people in the LGBT community that were there working alongside me that I could ask questions to. And they were the first people that helped me start my transition medically and start working with a therapist and everything. So honestly, if it wasn't for that Trader Joe's community and the resources that the company offered me, I don't know where the progress would have went for me moving forward in my transition, because I didn't have any family support at that time. Because when I came out to my parents, they wanted me to see a therapist first. And so to honor them, I was like, okay, I'll go see this therapist. And then turns out she was like a Christian therapist. But luckily for me, she wasn't the type of Christian therapist that was trying to do some kind of conversion therapy or anything like that. She actually was really progressive, and realized like about 6 months into seeing her that she didn't have the resources to help me walk through my transition. After a time, directed me somewhere else it was a trans priest. She was a trans female priest, which, like, she was really helpful in helping me reconcile like faith and my transition. I think the hardest thing is kind of people who don't really understand or don't know how to support you, especially since I grew up in the church. So I feel like a lot of my church friends that I thought were really close started to distance themselves because they didn't really understand. They didn't understand how to relate to me anymore. And they also were like, are you leaving God's plan for your life? So it was eye-opening, because I feel like I learned who some of my true friends were, and the people who were willing to kind of roll with this with me and learn, even if they didn't know what being trans meant or what this would mean for me and their relationship. But I think probably the most traumatic thing was kind of feeling alone, feeling like my family's not really here. Many of my friends are kind of out of the picture. And, I felt like they were trying to convert me on some level, or like create some kind of create doubt in my mind that maybe this isn't what God wants for me, and maybe I should rethink this, or maybe it's coming from somewhere else, not that it's coming from an authentic place of me actually figuring something out about who I am.
When I was coming out the first time, I'd had so much of that sort of right-wing mentality hammered into my head for so long that even as I started to take religion classes or psychology classes and be able to look and examine the facts, I had this little voice inside me that was like, well, you're just trying to justify yourself. Because that was the language that they would use in church was, oh, you're just trying to justify this lifestyle. When I was first coming out or first coming to terms with my gender or my sexuality, extremely defeated, just miserable, honestly, just really miserable, dealt with definitely some depression and just kind of self-loathing, as well as, like I said, that sort of fear of God and fear of hell, but I would say, I think even after coming to a place of having an affirming faith practice or spirituality, there's still times that it's hard. And whether that's, when I was working in the homeless shelter, I would say that was probably more of a crisis of faith for me than coming out as queer, was just seeing this, how bad the world was, kind of growing up a little bit sheltered, and then really seeing how bad poverty was for the first time, and reconciling, like, where is God in all of this?
It's been difficult to kind of reconcile some of the things with my Christian faith and kind of who I am now, mostly because I always wonder how much of kind of the biblical principles am I going to be required to hold to, and how much of it is even still relevant today? And if I'm going to call myself a Christian or anything like that, then am I going to have to, like, cut and paste and, like, do the very thing that I've not liked other people doing, cutting and pasting their faith to tell me who I'm supposed to be, so I'm going to cut and paste to say that this is who I am, or something? I think it was definitely religiously based, but also I think the hardest thing for my parents is I'm an only child, or I imagine I'm an only child, and they had potentially different expectations, different thoughts of what my life was going to be like. And this was not on their brainwave of possibilities. So, I think for them it has been a bit of like a shock to the system, it being something that's totally, like, not really a part of their culture. Like, any kind of deviance, whether homosexuality, bisexuality, being trans, all those things are already, for Jamaican culture, very taboo and not accepted or talked about. So I can definitely understand from their perspective, really just like, I don't even know what to do with this. And some conversations I've had with my dad, it's like he feels like, well, I thought you were this person and now all of a sudden you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you, because I presented something to you because I didn't know who I was yet. But now I'm telling you who I am. And so it's kind of like, take it or leave it.
When you look at the WPATH standards, which is the World Professional Association for the Standards of Care for the Transgender Population, and you look not even just at those standards, but you look at research period, and you look at this community of individuals, minority stress is the highest. It's the absolute highest when you compare it to any other subculture and group of people within the United States of America. If you think about it, you're already dealing with intersectionality when it comes to race, gender, social class, sexual identity, right? But then you have a group of people who completely socially go against the grain, and as a result, the abuse, the disrespect, the mistreatment side of this world. So, okay, I have all these other facets of who I am, race, gender, ethnicity, and now how dare I go against the social powers that be and be who I am. the minority stress is the highest, and as a result, yeah, you're going to see a higher rate of emotional disturbances, suicidality, and just all the trauma that comes along with making the choice to be who you are.
There was a time where me and my dad didn't talk at all. Probably like, I would say maybe 9 months, that we just were like, every time we talk, this is unproductive, so let's not, until we can kind of figure it out. And I've offered like him to see therapists or things like that so that he could process it better, but he's not big on that at this time in his life. So that's kind of sometimes directed me on whether or not I feel like it's great for us to have a relationship consistently, it seems, to some of those folks of certain generations where they're like, oh, well, if I can't take care of my family, or if I can't manage my mental health on my own, then I've failed. If I have to outsource it, something's wrong. Which it's like, yeah, something is wrong. That's why you should outsource it to someone who's trained and can potentially add some help. As part of the requirement in Georgia, I believe, not only do we have to have like a letter from our therapist to start any kind of hormone therapy, but we had to live as the gender we wanted to be for like a year without any kind of, medical intervention. So that, I think, is a little screwed up, because that forces you to deal with a lot of dysphoria and misgendering. Yeah, HRT, honestly, it's helped me in a bunch of ways. It's helped me to look in the mirror and see the man I want to become and the man I'm becoming. I express my gender as male, and I don't know, like, I've been realizing, even after like going to a male therapist and kind of trying to like figure out what guys do, like on some level I reconciled, like, I'm not trying to just be like a cis guy. I know that my story is layered and nuanced, and I don't want to lose all those things. Like, yeah, I love boy bands. I get down with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and that's because I grew up as like a teenage girl, I guess. And so, on some level, like, I don't want to lose those things, like the dancing and some of the things that might come off as too flamboyant. They're not man enough. But I don't feel like that's, I feel like gender is on a spectrum in the same way as sexuality is. And so just because I like to dance to Whitney Houston and put makeup on at Pride doesn't mean that I'm less of a man. The main instance that I remember, it was when I was still working at Trader Joe's, and I was like out pushing carts and things like that. And I don't know when this guy saw me or noticed me, but for some reason he felt like he needed to be aggressive towards me and be like, "You're not a real man," kind of stuff. And I remember at the time, and it did kind of trigger some things in me where I was like, okay, like if someone's ever gonna present themselves like that to me, a cis man that's bigger than me, stronger than me at the time, I need to be able to know how to take care of myself. And so, on some level, I guess I thank that guy for kind of like putting a fire under my butt to realize that, not everybody's gonna treat me the right way or treat the people around me the right way, and I need to be able to take care of that on some level or diffuse it. Community means, people that you can just be yourself with, people that you can have fun with and laugh with, share meals with, but also people that hopefully you can share deeper levels of your life with, and they can share things with you. And that's important to me. I think communities should be both a place that you can take from and a place that you can give to. I think that's what I like most about our community right now. I really have found my solace in music. And there was a time that I was like really scared that I wasn't gonna be able to sing anymore, because I sang a lot. I mean, I sang for the church, and then also like I wrote music and performed all over. And so, music was a big part of my life. And when I started HRT, the voice change and everything, and on purpose, we kind of like limited my dose so that it wouldn't be such a drastic switch, so that it was kind of like, we'll taper up over time as we kind of see how fast your voice changes, or my voice changes, and everything else. And so, and I was cool with that because that was really important to me. As much as I wanted to transition, I didn't want to lose my voice in the process. And so it was interesting because even though we did that, and that was kind of what me and my doctor worked out, I still kind of lost my voice for a while. And even still, like, what I'm learning now is I don't have the same voice as I did before transitioning, but that's okay. Because at least now I can still sing. For a second, I couldn't sing at all. So I was like, damn, okay, here we go. Guess I'm just going to play guitar in bands. But it was good. It was a good time for me to really evaluate, like, okay, music is not my identity. Because I think as much as I love music, I needed something to kind of remind me that, like, hey, like, you have other things that add value to your life too. And you don't need to put all your eggs in this basket as the only thing that can provide you emotional support. And so it was important. It was hard because it was scary that I was never going to be able to sing again. But I realized that, like, I could live without it, but I'd rather live with it. And if I am unable, tell her that I tried underneath the table. I will spin the wheel and hope for gold. Though my life before was tragic, now I know my love for her goes on. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home. Anytime she goes away.
We had the Transgender Day of Remembrance. We honored people who were from the community who lost their life just simply because of who they were.
Also, we have a mayor who's more open to queer and trans issues. I think before I got here, I was reading that they hosted a Transgender Day of Remembrance vigil at the Atlanta City Hall for the first time ever, which is pretty significant. I think there is definitely more people listening.
After spending the day with Kris and going to the TDOR event at City Hall in Atlanta, we really just sat back and reflected on everything we had learned. We as a team reflected a lot on how religion has shaped our transition and how it can affect families. People tend to be so focused on the little things, checking boxes for this or that, when they forget we're all just people trying to find ourselves in this world. No matter if you're trans, heterosexual, queer, non-binary, or cisgender, isn't the most important thing in life to just enjoy it, smell the flowers, take a deep breath, and appreciate you are here and can be yourself.